All right, and here we go. Greetings and welcome to episode number 16 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about everything past, present, and future of one of gaming's most storied franchises. This week we have a pretty substantial and technical audio update from 343. There's also been some Discord rumors over the last couple of days, and we will talk about this to think about what sort of impact this might have on Halo's ecosystem and community. And if we have a little extra time, we'll take a moment to step back and talk about our general feelings on the game so far. First, let's go ahead and meet the Spartan team. Joining me today is Mike, aka Kage Maru. How's it going, Spartan Mike?
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Going good here.
Thanks, Mike. Next up,
I know, so convincing.
You did not sell that at all. Next up, we have Spartan Jesse, aka Don Cabeza. How's it going, Jesse?
I am doing wonderful, listening to all these lovely sounds and looking at the same old screenshots.
Awesome. Next up, we have Spartan Daniel, aka Nadian. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty awesome. Excited to be back here. A little bit sleepy. Let's do this.
So far, we don't have a lot of energy. Next up, we got Spartan Austin, aka Proven. Come on, try to save us, Austin. Yell. Don't have a lot of energy.
Hello. I hope I sound clear in HD.
What's going on?
It almost sounds like you're coming through Dolby Atmos there, Proven.
Yeah.
That was like
surround
sound.
Sonic.
All right, and so one of our members today had a last second family emergency, so we will hopefully catch Soul, our Soul Blazer, on the next show. Finally, as your host, today it's Spartan One Bad Mother. So first thing we're going to talk about is going to be the audio update. So 1 hour ago, 343 put out a pretty in-depth details from the developers and regarding the music and the audio. Some of that stuff gets really, really technical, and we'll try to cover that here in a moment. But what I wanted to start off with, kind of as like an icebreaker topic, was the fact that they really re-emphasize the fact that they're trying to recapture the original essence of Halo. So I'll just go ahead and I'll read some of the things here and then get everybody's thoughts on this. So one of the developers said that in the very first kickoff meeting, he still remembers having the exact same top goal as the audio team, which was recapturing the original essence of Halo, which was very exciting. The overall idea of returning to the original essence of Halo is heavily connected to the overall project vision of Halo Infinite being a spiritual reboot, which you've heard mentioned by other members of the teams in prior blogs, which we have. I think we've heard this every update so far. When we talk about strengthening the excitement and impact of Halo's combat, that aligns with some of what Troy Mashburn was discussing in last month's blog around the concept of supporting the super soldier vision from the player's experience. And he talked about there's two key goals to hit the Halo Infinite experience the players wanted. And so then he also goes on to talk about the campaign music. He says it's all about capturing the brighter themes like hope and believe while embracing the mystery and beauty of Zeta Halo. He said he loves the scores for Halo 4 and 5, and where we try to incorporate story very carefully, but as a result, tonally, it wasn't as hopeful as prior Halos. The original games also had dark elements but in their stories, but the music largely focused on the brighter side, which worked very well. So he basically, without reading everything here, basically says they want to have the music focus more on the hope, heroism, and confidence. So I'm going to turn it over to the rest of you guys. I'm going to go ahead and start with Let me start with Don, because Don, you are the one guy on this team that really, I think, puts Halo 4 probably in the highest regards. I'm not in that same camp, but so I want to hear from you, like when you hear stuff like this, like going back to the classic sounds and everything, like how does that make you feel? Is that something that you're looking forward to, or was that are you going to kind of miss more of that darker tone of the newer Halos?
I got a secret for you, man. It's mostly lip service. They are going to invoke those feelings of the old games, but they are not at all actually going back to what the old games were, because that would suck. Nobody does that anymore. You don't see Halo CE in new games because new games are better. Halo CE still holds up really well. I have fun playing it. But when it comes to actually what is this new game going to be, it is going to feel like it spiritually, whatever that means. It mostly means people with nostalgia are going to be like, I recognize this, I recognize that. Compare them one to one. They are not going to be that similar. It's a spiritual reboot where we go away from some more of the Power Rangers stuff, away from more of the squad dynamic you had in 5. Maybe a little bit away from the constant person in the upper left corner you had in Halo 4. But it's going to be its own newer and better thing, I think, is what it's going to be in the long run. The fidelity of everything. We'll get into how they talked about the new audio actually having Dolby Atmos built into it, spatial audio, this thing that supposedly only PlayStation 5 had, but the rest of us remembered, oh, that's actually been a thing everywhere else for a long time. It's now going to be built in directly for it. It's like they've been doing updates for how they've been capturing audio for many months, mostly on like Instagram and stuff, and it's actually been really interesting. Like having a freaking pug doing the sound effects they're using for grunts and that type of stuff. Like there is just so much time and effort being put into this in a way that hasn't really happened before. And a way to get people happy is to say, we're going back to the old roots. You're really...
Can I touch on that too?
Yes, go for it. You're like me.
Yeah, so, I'm excited for a couple of reasons. For one, hold on, let me scroll back. For one, Satoru Tojima, he's the audio director for this one. He's been there since 2009. He was the reason we got Neil Davidge on Halo 4. Regardless of what I think people may think about the soundtrack, at the very least, it tried to do something new. There were a lot of tracks on especially if you have the deluxe edition, there were a lot of tracks that had reminiscent themes from the old games, but they really tried to invoke a sense of loss, a sense of Requiem is such a great track that really kind of invokes this like mystery, as you're coming up and seeing the Forerunner structures for the first time. I don't know. There's so much that I think that I think on that soundtrack that has so many wonderful elements in it that I think they're still going to be invoking here. And I mean, we've heard 3 tracks from the soundtrack already, and I think that kind of tells us what we're going to see, right? Because there's 2 tracks that are very reminiscent of like Walk in the Woods and the general theme, but then the Fire in Your Heart track that plays, I can't remember if it's actually just called Fire in Your Heart, but that track that plays during the demo last year is wholly new. It is clearly, it is not as hopeful, it is not as somber as well as Halo 4's, because they talk about harkening back to the senses of hope from the older soundtracks, and you get that with those other 2 tracks, but the Fire in Your Heart track is very, is still very much a new element that isn't still bound to those. So I think we're going to get a mix of both. I think we're still going to see those old themes and tones that some of us really kind of think fondly on, but I think we're also going to get new elements that are evolved beyond just retreading the same ground.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from, in 4, they're introducing the Prometheans and the Forerunners, and they have to have their own sound. Because you had the UNSC style music, you had the Covenant style music. Now with Infinite, you're going UNSC style hopeful music versus bringing in the Banished, which had only really been in Halo Wars 2. So they're going to have to give them a clearly defined sound that really introduces people to what is a very good protagonist.
See, like, I don't get... So the recapturing the legacy essence of Halo, I don't get that as... I didn't take that as, the older is the better or anything that you were saying before.
Unless we're talking about Halo 5.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, see, that's just the thing, though. I mean, Halo 4 had moments of it. Halo 4 definitely had moments of it, but Halo 5, it was completely lost entirely, where...
Yeah, because 5 was so focused on
Agreed.
Cyrus.
Well, it was not even just the focus. It was like the pacing of it. It was always
The entire
like,
sound design for 5 is so
it
just
was cranked
worlds
up to
apart.
an 11, like constantly. Where you look at, you look at Halo CE, you look at even Halo 4, where there's just like a sense of mystery, wonder. I mean, the soundtracks back up those moments of that you come across during the campaign. Like there are those triggers. Whenever you in Halo 4, when you first see the outside world of the shield world, and you look up and you see those giant air towers and everything, like that is the perfect example of like audio cues or triggers where the music just adds so much to that moment. And
yeah, that's in Requiem that I was mentioning earlier. Like you said, you remember that even years later. Yeah.
And there are parts in Halo 1, and to be fair, like Bungie kind of lost it as well in moments. You didn't like Halo 1 and Halo 4, oddly, are the ones that stick out to me the most. And there were some parts in Halo 3 that when they say recapture the legacy essence of Halo, that's what I take from it, where the music supports or enhances that moment within the campaign, or that moment of where that you're playing, instead of like Halo 5 just I mean
as much as
Oh, go ahead.
sorry man, go for it.
No, it's okay. I was just to add, just in general, I've always took the spirit of a reboot thing where it's like some like fans are hopeful that it means like they're gonna go back to the way, like they want it to be like they're just remaking Halo 1, 2, and 3. Like the way I see it is like they're looking at what made those things good and then modernizing it. So the same, like for me, I liked Halo 4, but to me, like it was a good soundtrack. It wasn't anything like the other Halo soundtracks that I liked. So at first I didn't like it as much, but I grew to appreciate it. For Halo 5, I didn't like. I actually thought the soundtrack, even though the Halo 5 soundtrack sounded more like Halo to me, I actually didn't like it as much as Halo 4 because I didn't think it was as good. So
yeah, oh, go ahead, Proven. Keep going.
No, I just think for Infinite, they're trying their best to like balance it out. Where like what Daniel was saying, or like the two soundtracks that sounds like Marty O'Donnell wrote those. Like those sound like exactly like something he would have written. But then they also have their own like flair. So I think they're trying their best to balance. Where it's like they're kind of going back to some of the old audio and old gameplay, while also trying to like push the series forward.
Yeah, I think everybody's brought up some pretty good points so far. Mike, I think I'm a little bit more. I think my tastes kind of align a little bit more with yours in regards to like some of the newer tracks. I did feel that, for me at least, it just didn't feel like there was enough of a gap in terms of like the tone, if that makes any sense. Like it just didn't feel like as much of the roller coaster. Or you didn't feel that as that wide range that the original Halos had, because as much as they say they focus on like things like the heroism and things like that, the thing that really stands out to me is just how well they really they slow things down in with the dramatics music versus pumping it up. And there just was they really did a better job, I think, conveying feeling in the OG Halos. He talked about it. And I didn't read this part of it, but he said, like, for Infinite, we first identified our core pillars, one of which was mentioned as above as hope. Another falls into the ancient mystery sci-fi category. And the third is military honor and sense of duty. So I guess, like, what I think about this is they're trying to hit the tone. It's not necessarily trying to hit the exact same notes as the original Halos, but really it sounds to me like they're trying to hit the same tone, like convey that the similar range of emotions, and create that sense of wonderment or mystery, like they say there.
What was the night snow level? Was that Assault on the Control Room, or was that no, Assault on the Control Room was the day one, because that's the one that you're headed towards it, right? Like, I just remember this moment where you're coming up, like, out of a cave.
Two Betrayals, or I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I think
Assault on the Control Room is the snow one. I'm looking at it right now.
That's two of them. Like, there's two of them. So Assault and Control Room.
Two Betrayals is the other one.
Yeah.
Damn, I was right.
I think it was the night one where you're coming out of a hill or a cave, and there's no fighting. There's no nothing. And this music part just kicks in. I really wish I could remember the track and everything. I didn't have dyslexia when it comes to names, but, like, every single time, still to this day, that I play that moment, I get goosebumps. And
it's funny you mentioned that. That's like, when I tell that story of, like, when I first saw Halo and I first saw the Xbox, that was the scene that sold me on. That's why I'm here today, and why I was in trouble with my ex. But anyways, keep going. I'm sorry, Mike.
But no, it's more of that I hope that they have in Infinite, because again, they touched on that in Halo 4 and they did a great job. It was never to the goosebump level, but I mean, again, I Halo CE is the only one that gives me goosebumps in terms of the overall
nostalgia factor.
No.
Audio can be tied to memories, and it's not even just nostalgia. It's just, I have these memories and I love this game so much, and when that hits, it reminds me of that. And 4 didn't hit that way for you story wise. 5 didn't hit that way for anyone story wise.
Well, it had nothing to do with the story, though. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the memory.
In the sense, the memory of going through it and loving it so much, and then 4 not hitting because it was so much tied outside of the game, and 5 being this weird hodgepodge slapped together thing. So if Infinite going back to what 1, 2, 3, and even Reach would be tied, I think, for me, to just how much it hits me as an overall package, where I really liked 4 quite a bit, but I've grown to appreciate it more. And 5, I absolutely love playing it, but you can give or take almost anything else on it, story-wise, and some of the levels are obviously had half the time that the good ones did.
Well, I mean, I guess where I'm pointing at is that I had goosebumps the first time I heard it, and I hope that happens again. Like, it wasn't even a memory thing. It was
that was me though for 4, and I would challenge both of you guys to just download the soundtrack somewhere from Spotify, whatever, and just listen to it, because, like, Awakenings, Requiem, S117, and near the end. I mean, there are so many tracks in there that I would argue are just as Halo as some of the original Marty tracks, and they have such emotional. I mean, they hit every emotional point that a soundtrack song should. And I mean, I would be happy to give you guys a recommendation to just sit down someday, listen with your headphones, even without the game. Just put them on, and I think you'd come back surprised.
No, that's some good points. I do want to just really quickly touch on some stuff that was in our chat. Like, Apache said, like, he expected the Infinite soundtrack to be the best yet. And so we had some, like, Peter he asked about isn't the guy that worked on the Ori soundtrack working on Halo Infinite. And so I wanted to kind of use that to transition a little bit. So, like, as we kind of went through the article, I know, like, for each of us, different things was really standing out in terms of the update. Mike, you talked about the composers really being something that stuck out to you. So I'll let you take that over and, kind of elaborate on that.
Yeah, I mean, because outside of like the composers for me is one of the most interesting things. Like there's the technical part of it, and that's always interesting, but it kind of goes along with really what we've been talking about so far this whole time is just the experience that you get from it. How does it add to it? And the fact that it has 3 composers, like it really, really intrigues me, especially since one of them is Gareth Coker. So the question of how was the decision made to partner with 3 composers for the soundtrack? Can you speak about some of the unique challenges and opportunities that come from working with a trifecta of composers, largely remotely at that? And this was Joel Yarger, or is it? Yeah, it's Joel, right? Not Joel Yarger.
I think so, yeah.
He says, with the scope of Halo Infinite being larger than any previous Halo game, we established early on that we would need between 3 and 4 hours of written music. This only covers the campaign. It does not include our multiplayer experience, which will be fun to discuss more in the future. Past Halo games have relied on duos, even trios, of composers to cover various aspects of themes, narrative threads, locations, and even styles. We are very fortunate to have found 3 individuals who each bring unique talents, perspectives, voices, and especially a passion for Halo and its long history. Between Gareth Coker's mature command of an orchestra, Curtis Schweitzer's intimate choral and piano writing, and Joel's Corlitt's mastery of synths and unique sounds, I think we have a fantastic composer team that will continue to push Halo into new areas well into the future. It's important to note that Gareth, Curtis, and Joel covered many different themes, areas, and styles, and were definitely not limited to what I've just mentioned above. And then they go on to talk about the remote aspect, which I think is less interesting. So like it's that having those 3 different perspectives, I just cannot wait to see what they bring, because I think each one of them sound like they can bring different elements. Like Curtis and Gareth, I imagine might maybe bring in those more adept or emotional scenes, or the audio that corresponds to what we're seeing on the screen, whereas Yoel's probably, because he says synths and unique sounds, probably more so towards the sound effects,
the sci-fi elements of the soundtrack they were talking about, probably.
Yeah. And I mean, just marrying those 3, I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that's cool is that they're going to bring in like a bunch of different perspectives. So it's not just like if one person came, if it was just one composer, then it would be whatever he thought. But then they're also having 2 other people come in, so it's going to be a bunch of different ideas of like how to make the game sound.
Yeah, I was going to say, with 4, it was Davidge and Kazuma Jinoichi, and the thing that really made that soundtrack a little bit more varied or diverse than like Reach or ODST before it, which those in my opinion were great soundtracks as well, was that like you said, Proving, they had different perspectives. 5, I think the greatest failing, or one of the reasons it failed was it was all Jinoichi's. It wasn't as much of a collaboration between 2 main composers, whereas now we're getting 3. And Gareth Coker, Immortals, Ori, I mean, the guy's a legend at this point. So it's nothing but great things at this point.
I think that's one thing that people don't remember as much or realize as much.
Michael Salvatore.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly where I was going to go with it.
It never was just Marty.
It's not just Marty. And Michael has gotten kind of the shaft in terms of, where... in terms of recognition.
I just thought of this. I thought of this before, but he's kind of like the Tesla to his Edison. Like Marty gets all the credit for everything, but then Michael Salvatore basically gets like no one even knows who he is. Like it feels like
I had no idea who he was, and I've been a Halo nut since. I always think Yeah, I mean,
I'm the guy that's got like every sound. I bought all of them on CD because I'm that kind of age. But
I just lost my Halo card, I think, or at least got it suspended. Yeah, no, but you guys brought up some really good points, and like when you talk about the history, it kind of like that really just highlights one of the things I said, 10, 15 minutes ago regarding like the tone and like how Halo 5 was sort of one note-ish. It just didn't really feel like it had enough like it didn't have enough separation in terms of like the motions or the moods and things like that. Whereas the classics really did. They painted those. They really did a good job capturing those moods. And I think having different composers who specialize in different areas allows whoever's directing the game to really try to correlate that to, like this composer, we're going to have him work on these types of scenes and like create the scenes that are more maybe mysterious and alien. We use a composer for that versus when we want to create that triumphant hero music, you use a different composer for that. And I'm pretty excited. I would say Gareth has probably been my next to Marty, which I guess I should say Marty and Salvatore, but next to Marty has probably been my favorite soundtrack from a game with the most recent Ori that came out. So
agreed.
Yeah. From a music standpoint,
you want a funny piece of trivia is okay. the guy who took over Destiny's music after Marty was fired or left or whatever that situation was Michael Salvatore. He's the one who does all of it. He does all the Destiny music, and it's very good.
Wait, still to this day?
Yeah, he's credited for everything they've done up through the newest expansion.
Oh wow, okay.
And the music's still great in Destiny. There's no doubt.
It's really better good now.
And the funny thing about Gareth Coker is that he can even make a great soundtrack for a game like Ark Survival Evolved.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize he did the soundtrack for that, and the soundtrack for that game is amazing.
Immortals Phoenix Rising has legitimately one of my favorite. It's like one of my favorite pieces of music. It's so good. He's just phenomenal at everything he does.
So I'm a music nerd, obviously, and there's a podcast called Music Respawn that you guys should listen to, and Gareth Coger's been on there, I think, 2 or 3 times. And first time was with Ori. Yeah, 3 times. First time with the first Ori, and then the second time with Will of the Wisps, and then recently for Immortals. So he kind of goes into his whole process, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, really, really good feedback. Does anybody else have anything they want to add regarding the composers before we try to touch on some of the...
Curtis Schweitzer is fantastic in his work. What was it, Starbound? I can't remember.
Yes.
Really is very Halo-ish in the way it sounds. And then his first track came out, and it was fantastic. So I'm really excited to see what he's done.
Oh, so one of the tracks that we've heard so far was one of his?
Yep.
They've released one for each.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Is that it? Okay.
That's right. They did say they released one of each, and
they've all. I was gonna say they've all been released on Spotify and Apple Music today.
Okay, nice. Yeah. The entire soundtrack or just those 3?
No, just those 3 tracks.
They were only on YouTube before.
Okay. Yeah, I've absolutely loved everything that I've heard from Infinite so far. So that's good to know that E3 has had a chance to show it off.
All right, guys. Some good feedback on the music. I do want to kind of move forward to some of the other aspects of the article.
Do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So, they get into some really nerdy stuff here. Stuff that's a lot smarter than me when it comes to the audio. But I do want to bring up some of the more advanced audio aspects in regards to the custom-built acoustic simulation system. Now, Daniel, I think that's maybe more your wheelhouse, so I'll let you take over that and, kind of get that one going.
Sounds good. The question was asked, and from a systems perspective, how do you achieve your goals of making combat more immersive for our players? And basically, they talk about this new custom-built acoustic simulation, and typically, because sound travels in a conical wave essentially that expands out, and it travels linearly in the direction from its source's projection until it hits things like walls or corners or anything that's basically a hard surface that's not going to absorb those sound waves. And so what they've done is they've basically built a system that kind of combines currently how your source basically projects sound, and then they kind of make an amalgamation of that and a virtual source. So let's say there's a a sound coming from, like, there's a flood behind a door that's to the left of where that door opens. And so before, what happens is um, up until recently, they didn't have a great way of actually doing anything that would project sound accurately, so that it's actually kind of wrapping a little bit. Some of it's getting dampened by that wall, and so what now happens is that it projects the sound from there, but also combines a virtual source so that you actually hear the directionality of that sound from the door. And then it kind of combines that with that wrap. And what it now does is they're able to analyze things like obstructions, occlusions. So as if you have different materials and how they would actually absorb or reflect sound. And so it sounds like we're actually going to get a truly directional sound. They talk about how it's the first one that's mastered for Dolby Atmos. So if you're using your headphones, but more importantly, even if you're not, if you've got a Dolby Atmos surround sound setup, you actually get that Z-axis as well. So you're getting the height of where shots, are coming from, if they're coming from above you and things like that. So it sounds like it's a lot more of a environmentally aware sound system. It's something that we've seen in some games before, but I think the way they describe it is it's if you've seen that Project Acoustics video from a few years back where they show off Gears, I think it was.
Yep.
Sounds like it's going to actually utilize some of those ray traced audio elements, and I'm not sure if it's actually going to be ray traced, but the way that they describe it is it's very similar to that, and I think we're going to get some extremely cool sounds. So the way sound hits a glass window or a concrete wall, for example, is totally different than how it sounds when it hits a wall of dirt if you're underground in a tunnel. And it sounds like we're actually going to get that voxelization and the dampening effect that you have across different materials. So it's just really cool. Obviously, as an audio nerd, I'm pretty excited about it.
I mean,
that does actually sound. Go ahead, Mike. Yeah, it does sound really exciting when you describe it that way.
No, I mean when he was talking about that, the first thing that came to mind was the Project Acoustics, and it's kind of interesting that, because that's, from what I understand, game agnostic. Like, that's just like their own technology. So it's almost like they're replicating a lot of those techniques within the Halo engine. And I'm right there with you that if you go back and you listen to those Project Acoustics demos, they're amazing. And so like if and I think they use Project Acoustics in Gears 5. And
right.
So, and the audio in that is absolutely amazing. So if that's a preview of what we're going to be seeing in Infinite, then we are going to be in for a treat.
Well, and they were talking about frame by frame stuff, and I think that, like, again, I'm not the audio expert, so I won't try to pretend to be and pipe up in here, but just kind of like, the amount of detail, the fact that it's frame by frame, that it's so precise. And I guess really the only thing I would say, like, as a gamer, when it comes to game immersion, for me personally, and I might be out there on this, I think audio can be more immersive for me than even graphics.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So like, even as somebody that's not, again, an audio expert, and I start picturing some of the scenes they're describing in here, like, like, for example, when they're describing the prioritization and things like that of the different weapons, and how you'll hear different things stand out more than others. And just like how specific it, like, I can visualize, like, imagine what that actually would mean. And just the thought of that is super exciting, and really, to, again, for myself, probably even more so than, prettier textures or prettier graphics, because that really sound, like graphics to me are something that after a while, unless you get into a brand new environment or something like that, like eventually that stuff blends in. You just kind of look for the headshots and stuff. But when it comes to sound, like that constantly is immersing you. Like you're constantly listening for what's around you, what kind of things are shooting at you. Like it makes you aware of your environment. So it really does. So that kind of stuff is really the fact that they're going the extra mile here with the audio. And obviously the technology, the hardware is better for that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jesse kind of joked about it earlier, but and this isn't a disparaging comment about the PS5's audio block at all, because it's fantastic. But Hot Chips, we saw that the audio block, despite the fact that Xbox has not really advertised it that well, it's actually more capable than what's in the PS5, because the audio block on the series consoles is the equivalent of all 8 1X CPU cores. So it's extremely competent. So I think, kind of like what you were saying, Abe, is that we're going to see titles that really utilize the capabilities of spatial sound in ways that they've never been able to. And I think if you've got a great audio setup at home, that's awesome. But as somebody who just reviewed the Xbox headset, like I can't tell you how. I mean, I've got a pretty competent, it's Polk signature series, so it's Atmos capable. But compared to just the cost of great headphones compared to what you have to spend to get that in speakers, it's a huge delta. And the fact that we're getting some incredible sounding technologies that can be pushed wirelessly to those headsets, whether it's Xboxes or SteelSeries or whoever, it's really, really impressive. And I think, like you said, that can be such an immersive experience, far more than sometimes visuals can be.
Yep, absolutely.
Completely. And even touching on that, it's crazy how they are, because I don't know any other game that has direct support for not only Atmos, but DTX and what's Microsoft's native one?
Windows Sonic.
Yeah, Windows
Yeah, the
Sonic.
other ones were just mainly pushing Atmos, but if they're pushing DTSX, which has been the best one for me so far, that's really exciting.
Yeah, and it sounds like they're natively supporting all three, whereas usually it's either like 5.1 or Dolby Atmos.
And it's emulated to the others.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And there's a clear difference when, if you're playing something like Gears 5, or I think Assassin's Creed Origins also supports that. Like if you play an Atmos game and a non-Atmos game, at least on my headphones, there's a clear night and day difference in terms of
the ups and downs. That actual spatial part of it is
the Z-axis
different.
Yep, exactly. And when that's emulated while on a headset, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. So to think about getting that kind of experience with like banshees flying overhead and stuff like that is, oh man,
it's freaking sweet.
Well, it's like, like Billy said it in the comments there. He said, like, this gen is about new types of games with better AI and sound, not just graphics. I really think that so far that's been a little bit overlooked, because I feel like last generation, it really was all about, just higher resolutions, a little bit better textures over time. And there really wasn't, I didn't feel, at least, and maybe you guys disagree, I didn't feel like we had enough advancement in terms of how sound and like AI, which is not what this week's update's about, but things like that, other aspects that really bring you into gameplay or change the way games feel or how you experience them. There really was a kind of a limited evolution in terms of other areas besides just the visuals. So when these developers are talking about these types of things, they do excite me, because they're things that really, again, we're not used to talking about them, right? Like we're used to always just talking about the graphics, and that's what we are expecting. But then, but part of it is just, I think our imaginations have been kind of limited, over just due to Jaguar cores and everything else last gen. Proven, were you piping in there for something? I'm sorry.
No, I was just listening to what you're saying.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, let me pipe in. I put a
ahead.
link in the chat. Like their concerted PR effort around this stuff has been really good. I don't know if it's brand new or not, But if you go on the Dolby.com site and you can go, they've got a list of there's over 100 games now that support Atmos only on Xbox, because you pay the license for it, and Sony's got their own thing. But they've added Halo Infinite now, like that they are pushing it.
Okay.
It is going to be something. It says it right at the bottom of the Series X page. Halo Infinite coming soon. It's neat to see the marketing start ramping back up for this after they had to like completely stop the train last year after the delay. I'm really excited to see exactly what that's going to be with stuff like this.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for providing that, Don. Now, I do want to keep moving our podcast topics along here. Proven, I know that this probably translates pretty well into the weapon sounds, and I know that's something that really jumped out for you. So I'll let you kind of take over on the weapons.
Okay, you want me to read it?
Sure. Yeah. Whatever jumped out to you. Go ahead and talk about it.
I am totally not prepared right now.
Oh, okay. Well,
if you can read it, and then I'll react to it, because I totally just closed out the article a couple minutes ago.
Well, you mentioned about the BR sounds. Remember there was a couple of things that really stood out to you about the BR, like the heaviness of the sounds.
Yeah.
So just kind of elaborate on that stuff.
Oh yeah, I could react to that. Yeah. So they posted 2 audio clips. One was the Halo 5 BR, and the second one was the Halo Infinite BR, which we haven't heard yet until now. And the first thing I noticed is the Infinite BR sounds like a lot like beefier, and it sounds like has a lot of bass. I know one complaint that some people have had for Halo 4 and 5 is some of their weapons sound a little like weak. They sound a little punchy. They don't sound
flat.
Actual gun. Yeah, like the Halo 5 pistol, like it doesn't sound like an intimidating weapon.
Yeah, guns deafen you, and they can sound like pea shooters at times.
Yeah. So I think hopefully for Infinite, like they're focusing on making guns sound like really like super intimidating, super loud. And the second thing I noticed is for the Infinite BR, like you can distinctly, because the BR is a 3-shot weapon, and you can distinctly hear each bullet come out of the chamber. But for like Halo 5s, they kind of all sounded like one shot. Like, it didn't sound distinct.
It was continuous.
Yeah, so I think it's really cool that they're kind of like focusing on like, that's the thing that like the Halo BR is really iconic, and I'm glad that they're really focusing on like making that sound a lot better.
Yeah, no, it's really good points, and I think a lot of that just really ties into some of the stuff we were just talking about. Did any of you guys have anything else that kind of stood out to you about the weapon sounds, or anything else that that we haven't addressed? With
I was wondering on what everyone's thoughts on the plasma sounds a bit, because that's been one of my biggest issues with the 343 Halo games is the plasma sound. It sounds too high pitched, if that makes sense. Where it doesn't sound like I don't know how to describe it other than that. Like I really hope they have more of a like some light, I guess. I know that they're probably going for like light burning through air or whatnot type sound, but I have not been a fan of how plasma sounded in past Halo games, and I did like what I heard from Infinite. I don't recall though if there's no scenes in Infinite where you're holding a plasma pistol or
we
plasma rifle. So it's like the more iconic weapons that I'm really hoping they change how they sound.
I mean, when the gameplay demo, I think the Elite, he shot some kind of plasma weapon at you almost. So we've heard it there, but we haven't heard like direct audio since then.
Yeah, no, I have no thoughts on the plasma. I do want to see. I do want to hear the heavier weapons. I think I'm in agreement with Proven on that stuff. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say the BR definitely sounds a lot better, and they talk about kind of bleeding into the previous conversation too, just how the guns actually fire, the reflections of those gunshots bouncing off the environment properly, so that they dissipate, if you're in an open field, but if you're in a narrow interior, you're going, it's going to reverberate a lot more, as it should. And I think, the sounds that we've heard thus far, I think to Mike's point, that I think, the plasma shots just have a ton of treble, and there's like no mids or lows. And I think based on what we've heard with the other sound effects so far, I'm hoping that that's going to be the case for, a little bit more balance of a sound rather than that kind of flat, high pitched hollowness that we've kind of gotten.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going at. And I hope they have that changed.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move along our topics, because I know we're already coming up close to an hour, I think. So, Don, I know there's a couple of things that stood out to you that were even beyond just the sound stuff and the updates, but I'll let you just really quickly, highlight some of the things that stuck out to you in this week, today's update.
Wow, how kind of you.
Yeah.
The part that really hit me pretty hard was at the end of Tale of Two Rockets, which was, he starts off saying, for example, earlier this week, I was playing the game with a focus on rescuing scattered squads of Marines from their banished captors. And it just hit me that one of the main things I've always wanted from a Halo game is what they've talked about before with the golden path of this is how you progress the story, but also let me branch out and explore this big-ass alien ring. And just that thought that, I'm just going to focus on, I'm going to play for a couple hours by myself, not playing co-op with my brother and my wife. I'm just going to go off and I'm going to go rescue some Marines and have fun playing this game. And the thought of being able to do that is extremely exciting for the various, side stuff they're going to have. We saw go, eliminate Knight, whatever the hell his name was on the map before. And just having these different things that I can go and do that may pop back up, go to a new area or play again and things pop up again. And it's just stuff to do in Halo that isn't doing the same mission. It might be going through a similar area, but it's a different time of night. So I've got a different patrol coming through, and now it's daytime and there's not as many patrols going around. No one's asleep. I got to just go balls out and kill them. I can't try and do stealth. You mix that in with how they then move on to talk about how the aliens and the Marines are talking back and forth, because he messes up, things go crazy, which of course, when all hell broke loose, the Marine shouts heavy weapon fire incoming, which showcases them calling out this brute's got a rocket launcher, which no one else could ever really do, because it had to be a human version of the Flood before, or tossing a flare. We heard stuff like that, but the battle calls letting you know that you need to keep an eye out for a power weapon, then that power weapon being louder, and it's this side content that I can just have fun with. Like that type of stuff is extremely exciting for me.
Well, and it all goes back to what I think what the theme of Halo's been since they started doing these updates is they really keep emphasizing dynamic. It's like sandbox. Things are more dynamic. They're more detailed. There's more layers. I think last week, was it last time they were talking about how you could shoot out tires on vehicles and things like that.
The handling will go for that. It's not just this, okay, it hit one thing, so it's wobbling. It hit stage 2, it's now about to blow up. Stage 3, it blows up. Instead, you're taking out individual parts, which is massively different than it's ever been.
And the physics modeling actually responds to those effects.
Which would be interesting to see how that ever works on the Jaguar cores, but maybe there's a scaling of that.
Error.
Yeah. This is where I think Nick would want to pipe in and tell us that this is when they should have canceled.
I'm telling you guys, they're going to kill the Xbox One version.
Just looking at chat where people are talking about that, not to sidetrack it, but I do think they will pare back down. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 30 frames per second on Xbox One and even One X.
It has to be.
Because there's going to be so much more. Yeah, they have to give up that frame rate so that they're not holding back the Series X version. It could even be a Crackdown 3 situation where when PC players were playing with people on console, their version got knocked down a little bit so to keep parity so that they wouldn't see stuff that the person on console couldn't see or interact with stuff.
Nothing elicits positivity and hope like Crackdown 3.
Well,
it's a really fun game. Hey, you obviously like fun.
Talking about
fantastic.
Talking about the scalability, though, this isn't really something that's new with Halo, because Halo 3, for example, there were fewer audio samples that played at once if you didn't have a hard drive,
Right.
and it was running direct off disk without a hard drive. And so when it comes to the audio portion, I do wonder if there's going to be some level of scaling, because I didn't realize, with Jesse pointing out earlier, I didn't realize that the Marines can call out what enemies are holding or what they're doing, and that to me is exciting, because I haven't heard any kind of advancements in AI since, like, I remember that being a big deal with Call of Duty 2 at the launch of the 360, where your AI teammates would, like, enemy second story window or something like that. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's reactive and dynamic, and it's not just like a scripted moment.
Pre-canned.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that what they do is, in a year or two, when they drop the Xbox One version, that conversation you and Abe and I had about the potential of machine learning and how that can bleed into AI, both into behavioral response, but also into AI driven dialogue. Like, that would be, because I think we are going to get, at least to begin with, some pre-canned. They've got 5 different weapons that can be in this environment, right? So they're going to have those scripts for those. But what happens when we actually get the ML based AI and we start seeing new responses that weren't in those pre-canned? Like, if you bring a weapon from another environment that they didn't really account for, and then they respond to that, or if a brute follows you from another zone into this one with a weapon that they didn't account for, and how do they respond to that? That's the stuff that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think people really underestimate that, and it's almost like, I know we're kind of going off topic a little bit here, but it really encompasses kind of the overall, a lot of the overall feeling I've gotten from some of these updates, and really what they're focusing on, the potential, right? Like, a lot of it is right now we haven't seen anything again since the July show, and so, like, a lot of what we're hearing is on paper for now. But just the real potential going forward, and also just, I think you bring up some good points, Daniel, and hopefully they do an update here soon on the AI, because that's going to be one of the most interesting things to really consider, not just for a launch, but really going forward, because just again, we'd have to kind of nerd out and probably lose all our listeners right now, but talking about, like, how they can really evolve that stuff over time, especially as they kind of capture data from how people are playing and stuff. But getting back to the audio thing again, I do think that the focus of the sandbox, the dynamic aspects, and now you're tying the audio into that. So, like, from a gameplay standpoint, that's really one of the things that stood out in the article when they talked about the prioritization in terms of, you'll hear the more dangerous weapons first and things like that. And then, like, to your point, Mike, the call out. So it's all playing into, this higher quality, more dynamic, more detailed sounds is really playing into not just the sound. It's really playing into the gameplay now. It's really tying into everything. And it's like, when you start tying in all your senses together, that's what really sticks the landing. It's not just the graphics or just the story, and it's really trying to put it all together. So the audio stuff, obviously, it sounds really impressive, and I'm pretty excited about it. Do any of you guys have any final thoughts before we try to move on to our non-audio topic?
Nope.
You get.
I am, just real quick, I am really curious to see if there's going to be any noticeable differences between current gen or new gen and last gen, because the audio block in the Xbox One is quite capable too. I mean, it's not comparable to the Series X and Series S, obviously, but that's the reason.
We've all moved on, Mike.
If there's one truth I've come to realize, is that there really isn't such a thing as lazy devs, and I bet you, outside of getting it directly from them, I bet you us plebs are going to have no idea if we try and go back and forth and really notice. I think, yes, they will scale the hell out of it, but they're so damn good at it that I will never be able to freaking tell.
Well, I will never be able to tell, because my Xbox One X was traded into GameStop.
No, that's it.
Prove it. I know you wanted to mention something about the skewer weapon. I don't know what to say about it, so I'll let you take that.
Oh yeah, well, they introduced a new a new banished weapon, and it kind of looks like the Retro Lancer from Gears of War, if anyone remembers that.
Oh, it does. Yeah.
I
Except for it's a giant
told-
spike instead of bullets for the actual shooting part.
yeah. So it looks like it's going to be a heavy weapon. There's an audio clips in the article if the listeners want to check it out, and it sounds like really, really powerful. So yeah, I like the way it looks, like the design. It looks very banished. It looks like it kind of looks like it was like kind of duct taped together in a way. Like it doesn't look like like it looks like they added a bunch of
Like all their stuff.
Yeah, Banished is
Yeah.
very focused on we've got all this different tech and we try and make it work, and all of our weapons do way more melee damage than any other weapon.
Yeah.
Well, that's
that looks
been like
it'd
that's been like
No.
the Brute's direction even in 3, right? They had
Yeah, they love
just
their blades.
leather bands and the blades and a very machine heavy look to it, I guess.
Yeah, their choppers were built by engineers. I mean, it was just put together by scraps, essentially.
Yeah. That weapon does look gnarly.
Yeah, it looks like it'd be good at melee.
Do you
Oh,
think if you shoot someone next to a wall, you stick them to it like in the older, what the hell was it, Fear?
Oh, that would be amazing.
That would be pretty cool. I don't know if that
I-
that might be an M rating.
Yeah, it's probably.
Isn't
not.
it already M?
I don't think so.
They
I
might
don't
be
think
were. Wasn't
don't
it
think
like
it's
4
that
was
kind of.
teen or something?
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
even
think
the
they'll go that
first
far.
ones were, but they never should have been.
No, they shouldn't have been.
Yeah,
They were-
there was no reason to be.
I think they said some swear words back when they never used to swear, and so they got M ratings. that was ridiculous. That they got
Well,
M
that's when
ratings.
they were trying to ban. People only stole cars because of Grand Theft Auto. It was that time. So you know,
That's true.
were-
That's true.
we were
It's
even
still going
stupider than
on.
we are now.
All right. Hey, Proven, any final thoughts on the skewer?
Oh yeah, just to go back to that real quick. Haruspis on Twitter, he's someone who does like a lot of Halo stuff. He pointed out that the skewer was kind of talked about in Shadows of Reach, and he was saying how they're described as anti-tank weapons with rocket-sized projectiles. They're meant as anti-armor weapons, but the brutes like using them on like just regular soldiers. So like they're heavy weapons, but I guess the brutes like just like using them on just normal soldiers. Which
That
is
really
kinda
sounds like something
messed
you
up.
can pin someone to a wall with.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Physics
well,
galore.
we will
Yeah.
see on that. For me, when it comes to weapons, all I really care, not all I care about, but the main thing I'm curious about is how they all balance in the sandbox. So I'll have to wait on what interests me in that area. So any final thoughts about audio or anything on this article before we move on to our off topic, but somewhat related topic with the Discord?
One last thing. It's almost the end of March, and I do believe that Nick was saying that if they were going to kill the Xbox One version, it would have to be in March, right? So
Yeah, he's losing.
the clock's
He's losing.
ticking.
Why was that? Why did he give it the time limit of March?
I think it was just one of his arbitrary deadlines. I don't know.
And not canceling Xbox One. You know what? The
No.
Xbox One
Yeah.
will come in like a hoopty. It'll be like duct taped together,
Yep.
but they will release it.
And they haven't even, they're not going to cancel pretty much anything Xbox One that's been announced for it until they've got the new server blades and xCloud
Right.
anyways, because they have to run the Xbox One
Well,
version.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, that's not right.
Now, I'm not saying that they're going to cancel Halo, but to be
They
fair,
pushed those off. I know what you're talking about. They've pushed them back.
no. Flight Sim and not EverQuest.
That's different.
Yeah,
But
they-
those two games were announced for the Xbox One.
Yeah, not like Halo. But all right.
Well, and,
Yeah.
but yeah, like Everwild, Forza Motorsport. Flight
Forza was
Sim.
never
Yeah,
announced.
Forza
Yeah.
was never, but
Everwild's the
Everwild,
only one that was announced and then kind of went silent and then came back. And yeah,
same thing with Flight Sim.
Peter asked
Mm-hmm.
the question: is there a world where Xbox One version is multiplayer only? I think that option's kind of flown the coop. I think they would have had to
Yeah.
announce that by now.
after launch and moving forward, give it a year or two, and then the main campaign stuff is only next gen, but multiplayer is always everything.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I would agree
Yeah.
with that.
I mean,
The
they're-
thing with the Xbox One is like a lot of if you look at like the Switch, like a lot of games somehow make it onto there, and the Xbox One is even more powerful than that. It's like I don't think, like, I'm sure the game's going to be like not super pretty to look at and probably won't run at a good frame rate, but like
It's probably going to be
they're gonna
super low
release the game.
res. Yeah, but it's going to work.
Yeah.
I think a lot
Yeah.
of people are going to be surprised.
think Cyberpunk. No, hopefully not that.
If
way.
they've got
no.
the coalition helping them, and the coalition's reconstruction method from Gears 5 is anything they can learn from, I think it'll look fine.
Yep.
Yeah. Like I said, I think most enthusiasts at this point have traded theirs in, or at least are playing on something.
If they could find one.
Basically,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
care about graphics, you're not playing on an OG Xbox One.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So I do want to move things forward, and so we're going to talk about one topic, and then I'll look through the chat and see if there's any questions we might have missed. But this is somewhat off topic. I wanted to talk about the potential of Microsoft buying Discord. It was brought up this week. Normally, that would feel like a weird tie-in to Halo, but I am going to argue against that. I think this might actually be very relevant to the Halo community and everything. So just to kind of catch people up, if they haven't already heard, over the last couple of days, it does sound like Microsoft's at least talking. Maybe exclusively. I don't know whether
That's the Wall Street Journal has said they are exclusively talking with them.
Okay, that seems kind of odd, but I'll guess that's a different subject matter. But the gist of it is that there's this potential. I think it's kind of somewhat general knowledge that Microsoft has been interested in the past, and it does make sense that I do think out of any of these mega corporations, Discord fits Microsoft's. Like, it helps them from a strategic purchase more than most other mega corporations. So it makes sense that they're going to be probably at the forefront of negotiating with them if they don't go public. So I did want to talk about that for a moment and really get people's thoughts on that, and really kind of, I guess, talk about the impact that maybe Discord might have on Halo on the Xbox. And then if they don't get Discord, what are some things that we think Microsoft needs to evolve or, innovate on along with Halo? Because the reason I bring this up is, if we remember, Halo used to always be a trendsetter, right? Like it came out, CE came out on consoles. We never saw anything like that on a console before. Halo 2 came out, and then with matchmaking, it really was like the evolution of Xbox Live and matchmaking and online gaming, and it really was one of the keys in terms of pushing that technology, or that paradigm forward in gaming into where we're at today. And then if you went on to Halo 3 and it introduced the Forge, and that created a whole nother element of ongoing games, like games that keep refreshing themselves because of the community. And so I felt like this would be a good time to bring that up and kind of consider, where are some areas that Halo could potentially set the bar again when it comes to community or evolution? How could Discord tie into that? Is there, and if they don't, is there some other things that they can do? So who wants to begin? I'll turn it over. Mike, I'll let you go. You talk about that for a little bit, and then
Well, I think you're entirely right, because it's clear with them making the multiplayer aspect free to play that they want Halo to have a far, far reach. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of want it to be their in-house equal or what have you of like Fortnite, where it's just everywhere, where you can get it on your phone through xCloud, you can play it on your TV or last gen or current gen consoles and PC. Adding Discord to that, where right now it's kind of a pain in the ass to jump into a chat between consoles and PC. Not even just console and PC, but obviously by the end of this year, xCloud is going to be a bigger factor. The last time I played Sea of Thieves on xCloud with friends, it was a pain to. It was a good thing that I was there in person. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking in chat. And using something like Discord and integrating Discord in every back-end aspect of their chat system, just I think would make that so much more seamless and a much more pleasant experience overall.
A unified interface.
Yep, and unified is the perfect way to put it.
Yep.
And still make it like a party chat, They don't have to change any of the functionality on the individual platforms or consoles. But, like right now, if I want to do a party chat with someone on PC, I have to send them an invite or they send me an invite, and sometimes it's hit or miss on how easy or hard it is to connect on the PC. Whereas if you integrate Discord, it doesn't matter if you're on Discord, if you're using the Xbox app on your PC, or if you're in a party chat on your console, or you use Discord on a phone. It's all just one chat,
Yeah, it's platform agnostic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing with Discord is, well, Xbox's like whole strategy seems to be obviously play on whatever device you have, and Discord's available everywhere. So except for consoles right now. So I think obviously if they bought Discord, then I would expect to see Discord integrated into the console relatively shortly after. So I think if we're using Halo as an example, like whether I'm playing on PC or I'm playing on XCloud or console, if you could just go onto Discord and join like a multiplayer chat with other people, like I think that would be really like obviously beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, part of, as the resident acquisitions nerd, I guess, with the OT, part of acquisitions is also technologies. It's not just the IP. It's not just the staff. It's not just the UI and or what people see on the front end, right? So, I mean, in theory, you could incorporate elements of Discord, in the existing, if you're still just doing a chat between Xboxes, or a group party chat. I'm sorry, not just text, but a group party chat across Xboxes. They could incorporate that same technologies that Discord uses to have more than, because I can't remember what the max is on Discord, but it's more than what you can do with Xbox Party Chat. So they can integrate the technologies just like they're going to be integrating Orion into xCloud in the near future. So it's more than, it is aiming for those 200 million users that I think use Discord right now, but it's also looking at how they can leverage those technologies that they already have in Discord into the Xbox ecosystem, and eventually, like we were saying earlier, make it a unified interface, unified platform.
Yeah, it's funny. The Discord doesn't actually have a limit on voice chat. It's pretty much however much you can handle until your computer explodes.
Yeah. so even better.
They'd probably put a limit on it for.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
I imagine part of the reason that there's a limit is because whoever's hosting it, that's eating up their bandwidth. So,
and being it's computer or phone, it's just you keep going until it doesn't work anymore, and then you got to start kicking people. But once you get into a closed-off system like console, they'll figure out this is the number that works best for what people are going to use. Our metrics show that stopping at 20, even if it's 15 or something, there's not going to be parties that are way bigger than that.
Well, one of the things that I find really interesting, like if I think about some of the weaknesses right now in the, just quote unquote weaknesses, like things that maybe haven't evolved at the pace you might expect from, the innovators of matchmaking, is things like the sharing, things like, you guys mentioned obviously the party chats across the
game DVR is bad.
Yeah, but sharing stuff, like you think about, the Halo community, and you think about like the future of Halo and like the opportunities. I assume we'll hopefully learn about the Forge stuff here in the upcoming months. But, one of the fun things with Halo, right from the get-go, from CE, is what was the videos that we used to see with people doing, wild physics tricks with the, with the warthogs and things like that, and with the grenades and rocket launchers, and now you think about taking all that to like extreme levels with with the potential with the sandbox, with all the possible Forge modes, the ongoing support for 10 years or whatever that's going to be. They really do need to. I think it's time for the entire ecosystem to try to evolve when it comes to being able to share things, invite people to things, and if you kind of think about it, if they get this Discord thing, and you set that on the xCloud, that really opens up some like crazy possibilities. You'll be in a chat and you'll be like, hey, just send an invite, through the Discord, and they link it and they can, join it on their phone maybe. So like that's kind of stuff sounds pretty like it's got a lot of potential, not just to sew up some of the weaknesses, which, I think that's what we're all focused on, but even kind of forward thinking beyond that. And I'm hoping that Discord or not, that with Halo, it does sound like they really have the right intentions when it comes to evolving the game and the, how dynamic it is and, all these other elements. But the community stuff, the stuff that we don't really think about, that's not directly gameplay, it's more, kind of peripheral to that. I think that stuff's going to be really important and really magnified with a game like this. So that's where that's one of the reasons why I did think the Discord stuff was kind of interesting, even though it's not really something that would normally be on a Halo podcast. I do think it was at least worth mentioning. Do any of you guys have any other thoughts about the Discord stuff?
I like Discord. This could be good.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'm assuming that they'll put in Game Pass Ultimate, so I won't have to pay for Endeavour again, which is great for me.
I don't know, man. Putting a full $10 a month thing. I saw people talking about that. It was a perk. I think it might be a perk more often now.
Yeah.
But also, like, if the rumors of Ubisoft Plus and if they do get Discord, I think it might be another tier, and maybe you save a couple bucks by doing it that way. I don't think they just throw it right in there completely. That'd be too good.
Agreed.
I mean, I've always assumed that eventually they're going to expand. They're going to have multiple tiers. Or like the highest tier, you'll get like free DLC or something, and all the other stuff.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know.
I think too many tiers would be a bad thing.
Yeah, until they get rid of
maybe
live.
Like 3.
Yeah, they have to get rid of gold.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Xbox Network now.
Yeah, with gold in the mix, until they make the multiplayer free and they get rid of gold, because who's going to be part of gold really if they take away the requirement for multiplayer? Until they do that, adding in any more tiers would just not work for them, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. No, good.
I would say I don't think I have anything to add to Discord.
Okay. That sounds good. All right. Well, that was cheesy. So let's move on.
I had to since Nick's not here.
Yeah, I need some dad jokes since Nick's not here. Well, I usually bring some bad dad jokes too, but I haven't had time. So let's go ahead and this is normally when we would do community questions. I'm looking through the chat. I'm just going to kind of scroll through real quick. I think we were able to cover most of the questions as we were going. I see a couple comments that I didn't address. I did notice that Striker Plays said that the biggest problem with Halo right now is simply that the Prometheans are just boring. I would agree with you.
I push back against that. Damn it! They were boring in 4. They were better in 5, and I think they'll be even better in Infinite.
They were better in 4.
I think the problem is the bullet reactivity. They're too damn bullet spongy. I mean, there's I don't know. They definitely.
That was the difficulty thing in 5. It just make them take 18 trillion shots to die because there's we're built to always have 4 and you can get rezzed type of stuff. With that being less of a thing in Infinite, I think it will be more. You get those good hits on the main areas and they'll go down a little faster.
So here's my thoughts. I hope they start Halo Infinite with a cutscene, and in the first 5 minutes, they
kill all the Covenant. It's only Prometheans. I'm with you.
No, you fucked that.
That's when I start asking for a refund because no.
Yeah, no, that's
like the thing that they were just, to me, they were a downgrade in 4 because you had what were the most common enemies? The human looking ones. Not human, but they had the.
Well, they didn't have the soldiers in 4. They were only 5.
They were okay. So the soldiers, you don't get much more generic than those. And then the knights, who I thought had potential in 4, they completely downgrade them by falling back to hit the glowy bits for extra damage. And then the dogs are just stupid in general. So I just
it's because you're a cat person.
I think expanding and fixing the knights. I think the knights were a good direction for them.
Yeah.
And expanding on that, move away from the soldiers. because that is the prime example of generic. Just having something that looks humanoid in nature, but it's a metallic.
Let me just kill humans.
I mean,
Give me human
it's just,
enemies.
yeah. I mean, do away with the dogs. Like, go back to what makes sense for a Promethean technology. The Promethean Knights make sense, but the dogs and the humanoid soldiers do not.
When you say it like that, freaking robot dogs in Halo, like, yeah, that's just whoever let that get through. I don't know.
Like, it doesn't make sense because the whole point of the Prometheans were to fight the flood, right? Like,
yeah,
it was digitizing various life forms so that they couldn't be assimilated by the flood.
well, I thought
So
only
they
the
assimilated
Knights
their
were
favorite dog.
I thought the Knights were the only thing digitized.
yeah.
Was it just that? Well, they had
No,
soldiers
the
assimilated.
soldiers were too.
Here's your chance, Proven. Tell us how much you love the Prometheans.
They're the best.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't.
What do you mean? What do you mean you don't know?
I haven't played enough because Don's played Halo 5 like a million times, so I feel like I'm unqualified. The thing is, every time I play Halo 5, I just feel like I can never figure out exactly where their weak point is, and like I know they have a weak point.
Dogs are
I
the
just
head,
feel-
soldiers are the head, and then the knights are the shoulders, and then the head.
Yeah, but I just feel like every time I play, I just don't find the feedback I get from them satisfying. Like maybe
can see
you could
that,
fix
yeah.
the way.
I agree.
They are robotic in their lack of, they're not meat suits. So
The
they don't-
reactivity is bad.
Yeah, the thing is for me, like any I don't like robot enemies in games in general. Like I remember for Gears 5, like I hated the section with the robots. I think that was
Agreed.
Gears 4. I don't remember. One
Gears
of those.
4.
I just find the robots in any game, like they're just so unsatisfying to fight because they're just giant metal cans that walk towards you and don't stop. Like I
Yeah.
don't find that satisfying.
I would say that's pretty much a universal thing for me as well.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
from Halo to Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't like fighting robots. All right, so we'll
Yeah.
move past Prometheans. I think we voted them down mostly, except for Don, but he's holding on.
I said they don't have great reactivity. My goodness.
I'm kidding.
The winner
No, you're
shoulder
not.
had a good question.
Wait, who?
The winner shoulder.
Okay.
He was
Go ahead.
asking, with Buck gone from Team Osiris, would 343 bring the team back with Gabriel Thorne from Spartan Ops? It would go back to 343's originally wanting him on Osiris, seen in Halo 5's concept art. Thoughts?
I think that in this particular Halo, they're probably going to just really slim down the cast in general. So
Agreed.
You say that, but the leak we haven't talked about is about a character from Shadows of Reach having a voice actor leaking the November date, which we all assume is November 15th anyways. I think you're going to run into more people than we have been led to. It's not going to be a lone Spartan thing again. You are just going to be Master Chief and probably, 4 Master Chiefs if you're doing co-op. Maybe they change that later up.
Yeah.
Right, but
you're going to run into more people.
Yeah,
The
but
way
I think
imagine is. So go ahead.
I was going to say that I think the point is that it's not going to be a character that's with you that you're playing as if in co-op or anything like that. I think we we'll definitely see other characters. I don't think that everybody exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's kind of how I imagine
It's not a don't.
You'll kind of.
It's in, Mike. You can't fight it.
Yeah, the way I imagine it being is you'll go around, say, to Halo, then you'll see a character that you recognize, and you'll do like a couple. You'll help hours, and then they'll disappear, go wherever. So
who's going to tell you to go kill that named knight, Mike? It's going to be another Spartan at your forward base where you get
nobody
to set
told
up
you in the gameplay trailer. It was already there. Master Chief just knows. Okay.
They have talked about how there's going to be forward bases, and you free this base, and then you can I bet you can get your loadout if you get a vehicle, that type of stuff. There's people around. It's going to be very light mechanics. It won't be too much for your old man bones. You'll be able to survive it, and you're going to learn to love it. Go ahead.
To answer the question that was asked, I think it would be cool if Thorne was brought in because I like the story of Spartan Ops much more than the actual missions of Spartan Ops, especially since so many of them were just copy paste. But he was a good character by the end of when you got through that entire arc. So I think it would be cool if they did for two reasons. One, I don't want to return to a Bungie world where Chief is the only Spartan left, despite every other aspect of the universe signifying otherwise. Even if Infinity's destroyed, there's got to be some survivors that made it to Zeta Halo. And I think it would also be good because having a Spartan 3 group with you to take on some of these more challenging areas might be kind of cool because I know that the lone ranger type element of Chief in the classic Halos was always good, but we also forget that there were plenty of times in some of those best levels where you fought alongside UNSC soldiers, and so instead of having meat sponges that just fall over after a couple shots, it'd be kind of cool to have some Spartans with you.
Yeah, I could see that. I will say, and this is probably a topic for a different show. I do hope they bring back a lot more disposable allies because it was always kind of fun to try to protect them. Those Spartans aren't going to die, so you just let them be.
Oh, we weren't supposed to just kill them as soon as they came in. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Or you just killed them and took their weapons if it was Halo 1.
That's what I did.
On Legendary, you do what you got to do. So
I could imagine gameplay because we obviously know there's going to be like missions where you have to go save some soldiers that are kind of stuck somewhere. I could imagine you save them and then maybe if you want ask them to join you and then kill them later if you want to take their weapons.
They said that.
Get that snipes.
One of the in the sandbox, I think it was, or maybe it was the AS343. One of them. I thought they touched on one of the things in the open world segments is going to be like the smoke signals that you can go and rescue.
Yeah, you see them in the distance. You go save people, and then if you get a vehicle, they just get in with you.
Yeah,
what was always sad. What was always sad in the Halos, when you would go save those soldiers, and then by the time you would get out and beat the level, you'd have no more soldiers left, anyways.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in between, the whole lone soldier thing, I agree, kind of didn't make sense because if you read the books and stuff, you would know that Master Chief wasn't the only one. But then at the same time, I think 343 went too far in the opposite direction where
absolutely
it was mass-produced Spartans. And I get the whole, what that means for, humans, hurrah, and all that. It just, I don't know.
That's pulled from the books. Even when Bungie was still in charge of things, Spartan 3s were there. They were squishier, all that kind of jazz.
Yeah, but they weren't as mass produced as Spartan 4s. Spartan 3s were
right,
kind of like
what
the
type?
Diet Coke of Spartans, where they
OBM calls us Spartans. What type of Spartans are we? Are we twos?
Well,
I'm Spartan 1.
I hope we're twos.
I'm in a wheelchair.
I'm one of the Spartan 2s that didn't work, and it just made me fat.
I think it would just be kind of cool if you heard them kind of, they're still around, but they're not with you all the time. Just maybe in specific moments, so it's not overused.
Where I'm at is I hope there are still other Spartans. I hope you're not the only one, and it can be like an Easter egg or a cool moment when you either run into it. Plus, we have to remember this is a 10-year platform or whatever the hell they want to call it. So there's nothing to say that, one, do we even know that the entirety of Infinite is going to be the entire thing is going to be on the ring? That we're not going to go to any other worlds or locations?
At some point, we're going to be traveling to different stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when, right? I don't know if it's going to be.
And when are we going to get to meet everyone's fan favorite, Spartan Sarah Palmer?
Oh my God! All right, so I think from there we can move on to the next.
I know she just
one.
really hated.
We have
whatever.
So Jeff Bob, the man with two first names, asks, "Hey guys, do you think they'll abandon the Locke storyline or quickly move past it?" All right. Well, I actually do have some thoughts about this, but first I'll let you guys see if any of you have any immediate thoughts about that Locke in this one.
Can you repeat that?
Do you think they'll abandon the Locke storyline or quickly move past it.
Oh, he's dead.
See, I don't think so. But okay, go ahead.
I think he's fine as a character. Like, I think there can be a lot more that can be done, especially with his Oni background, all that kind of stuff. But the freaking backlash that character got from the overly vocal Halo community, as we all know, I think that 343 is probably just going to kill him off screen, or in the beginning when Infinite gets blown to pieces.
I think the backlash was largely because they were pretty public on their intent of having Locke replace Chief, and I think the same backlash. Like if Bungie said that during the course of Halo 2 that their intention is for Arbiter to replace Chief, we would have seen similar backlash. And
absolutely.
And we did see some backlash just to Arbiter being included. Which I kind of get. Like, that backlash I think was for different reasons. But if there was like, I think Locke would work as a side supporting character, someone that was just there in the background.
It would be great as a side game for him to have his own, with Osiris.
Maybe a DLC a year or two in?
That's what I think.
If they had like an ODST style mini expansion or what have you, that would be totally cool.
And that might be the way that you can maybe ebb and flow the sort of game elements of it. Maybe you do bring back you could try different abilities, right? In some DLC.
He was an assassin. What if it's more stealth focused and he's got abilities that help him get around all the sleeping grunts and murder? They can go really cool ways with it.
Yeah.
You mean like if IO got bought out and they did like a side story with Locke? Oh my god.
The 7 deadly sins of Locke.
We know that, and it's actually interesting we're talking about this. You can almost go off on another tangent, another show with this stuff. But, we do know that the other, all the studios are getting to work on multiple little side projects and kind of incubate stuff and try, pitch different things that could maybe become bigger spinoffs or games and we've already heard the same with Coalition. It wouldn't shock me, they've already done the Halo Wars 2. I wouldn't shock me if
oh my god, could you imagine Arcane?
Well, that's what I'm saying, but it may not even be another studio. It could be right within 343. They could have a team that does something with Halo in another genre. And so, like, on the Locke thing, I know that he is kind of despised by a lot of the community, but I think to Mike's point, it really has more to do with him being associated with the bad Halo 5 game. And I say bad meaning the story and things like that. And the fact that people felt misled on the advertising.
Yeah, his character wasn't fleshed out. There were so many hooks put in that never got any payoff.
I hope that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that he was like an annoying character. He just wasn't developed. He wasn't, they didn't do much with him. So
yeah, the other thing is there were a lot of comments that were racist trash comments.
Yeah, there's going to be that shit too. We know that. Yeah. No, I would agree with you there, Daniel. But I do think they should stick with Locke, but in a spinoff. Like, give them a chance to actually be in an interesting game that's advertised correctly, so that it's not. And that's going to be the interesting thing with Halo, because Halo's a huge universe like a Star Wars, where you could go in a lot of different directions. You could spin off genres with it. Like 343 doesn't need to have another IP for their other teams for them to have second and third teams that maybe work on other things. They can do. They can take some chances, and especially with the Game Pass thing. And I know some people don't like hearing that, but especially with the Game Pass, you can take some chances that maybe you wouldn't have taken in a traditional model. So I don't think he's dead. I don't think they're going to kill him off initially. I think he's going to be somebody that is probably not going to have much of a role in this game. I think this game is, as they said, a Master Chief game. But when they're talking about, again, 10 years, consistent DLC, and all this opportunity that their other studios are getting, you have to assume 343 will get some of that, and if they do, then why not take some of these underdeveloped characters that we kind of already know, at least we know them a little bit, and fix that development piece and try to build some cool different types of games around them. Yeah. Mike, you were going to say something.
If it's a side thing, I think it would entirely work. I mean, when you think about it, no one complained about ODST.
Right.
No one complained about those characters, and I think just again, as long as they keep it a side thing, a side project, a side DLC or something, and they
advertise it right.
they advertise it right, and they don't make the mistake of like, hey, we want to. I think for the core, as long as Master Chief is the protagonist of the core franchise, I think they're fine and safe to do anything on the side. No one's complained about Halo Wars. No one's complained about ODST. No one's complained about.
I bet you I could find people complaining about it.
Well, I mean the protagonists, the main characters.
Wait,
same thing.
are you saying you can find somebody complaining about a Halo game?
Look, I can go to the Halo subreddit and I can literally find any topic that has ever been anything in any Halo at any point throughout the entire recorded human history and find 40 or 50 posts about it.
At least, yeah. And Reach definitely had a ton of backlash. I remember from people complaining about that you didn't play as Master Chief, even though like that was never a promise or expectation. But I would hope that, I mean, just kind of back to Winter Soldier's question, is like it would be so cool if we got an Osiris game, a side story game with Thorn instead of Buck since he's out. And like, do you guys remember how cool Republic Commando was when that came out back on OG Xbox? Like, what if we had something like that where you had a squad kind of like Halo 5, but not like Halo 5 at all?
I got a secret. The guy who did Republic Commando did Halo 5.
That's kind of what they tried with
He was
Halo
trying
5.
to do it.
Yeah.
I know, but like not as a mainline.
Yeah, a better version. Yeah.
The problem with Halo,
Well, you're not beholden to the mainline expectations.
And
exactly.
And they're what they did with the AI clashed with what they did with the enemy AI and like the encounter design completely clashed with what they tried to do with your teammate AI. You know what I mean? Like
right.
The focused tactical type of commands and gameplay does not work with a large scale encounters.
Right.
I wouldn't mind if Halo 5 was the last time they tried that, to be honest with you.
Well, in the main line, I'm open to like what Daniel was talking about, a side thing. I'd be totally open for that.
Well, and we talk about machine learning AI being used, big data being used to tailor those AI so they're not crap like they were in Halo 5.
That's
like
true.
That is the defining thing that we could do differently with the series console versions, and because at that point they wouldn't be the Xbox One.
I will say that'd be an interesting topic probably for a different show. I am going to move on because I know we are at an hour and a half already. So we went over.
But you told me before we started, you were like, we'll probably not even hit an hour.
Yeah, I forget we talk a lot.
The rest of us all said, shut up, idiot. We always go over an hour.
So there was a question from Apache, which I thought was interesting. Hold on a second. Now I lost it. He was basically talking about like damn it, I lost it. One of you guys got another question lined up? I had it here.
No.
All right. This is going to be, I think, the last question, and then we will wrap up the show. So he said, okay, yeah, so far my only worry is Halo Infinite will retell Halo Combat Evolved. I'm excited for the return to the classic feeling and everything gameplay related, but not sure how they handled the story. So I think this is probably a good question to end our show on, just because it kind of wraps back to, really what the first topic of the day was when, the developers were talking about the music being a throwback to Halo CE, and we kind of heard that theme over and over again. So I guess we'll open it up to the group. What's your thoughts about that? Is there any concerns that maybe they're going too hard towards Halo CE? Is it just enough? I'll start off with you, Daniel. I don't know if I started with you and too many.
I think it's too early to tell. I think, there's a lot of lip service, like Jesse said. But I think people who want a CE experience are not going to get a CE experience down to the bone, right? Because there's just, game development, level design, all those things have evolved that we're never going to go back to. I mean, there's a lot of, especially in Halo 1 and Halo 3, a lot of repeated levels where you go from point A to B and then right back to A. Those things aren't going to happen anymore. So I think we're probably going to get somewhere that's a little bit closer to, leaning towards new, but not quite middle of a balance between the new and the old. I think that anybody who's worried that it's, I don't know. I think anybody who's worried that it's too much back to CE are there. It's not going to be. I mean, from the game design, the level design that we've heard about, that's nothing like CE, right? I mean, there wasn't these open gated hubs like we're going to be getting. There wasn't this side content. I mean, yeah, you could take some of these levels in one or two different paths, but in general, it was still a well-designed level that was made to appear more open than it actually was. So I don't think it's a concern that people should have.
I think.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, touching on the actual.
I'll go ahead. Oh, wait, you go ahead.
Touching on the actual topic of the story, I think they're doing a good balance of it because.
My bad.
No, you're good. Because I was going to say a lot of what you said too. You just kind of beat me to the punch on that.
Somebody's got to be a contrarian to make it interesting. Go ahead.
No, and that's usually me. No,
I don't read.
No, but to go on touch on the story, I think they're going to do a good balance where it kind of, when you think about it, kind of calls back to CE and Halo 2, where humans they have their back against the wall, but I think that's to the overall strength of the arc, because it goes back to my issue with the mass-produced Spartans in 5. It lessened the stakes, and so it kind of created this back and forth scenario where you have an army full of Spartans. So how do you make the threat interesting? Well, that's what brought us to Cortana at the end of 5.
It's the Superman conundrum, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so, having fewer Spartans and having, I don't know what the hell happens, but Master Chief waking up to the human army being just scattered about and destroyed left and right. Like, I think it calls back to CE and 2 and 3, like the original trilogy, definitely, but they can put their own spin to it, and it can be, I think, to the benefit to the overall story going forward, because the risks are there. They're I don't know. They're able to make them, I think, more personal. I think that's another thing where if you get so big and so grand, you kind of lose the personal angle on it.
Yeah.
And it still opens up a lot of opportunities for the story going forward.
Sectioning off the levels and having it so that there's like legitimate physical gaps in between everything also makes it easier to have those more like tightly confined, and this makes sense, stories for each level.
Yeah. So Dan, what's your final thoughts on that? And then I'll send mine and we'll wrap it up.
That's about it, really. Everything I hear and see about this game makes me more and more excited, and I cannot wait until November 15th when it is released.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, Apache, I hear the concerns, and actually it's interesting because I hear a lot of the, for years the classic content creators obviously are more, lean heavily into the classic Halos, and I do too. I really prefer that. From a campaign standpoint, I do, although I put in like 2,000 hours in the Halo 5's multiplayer, but I do hear the complaint, like the concerns on both sides, where one thinks that maybe it's not going to evolve enough, and then where the other side's like thinks it's maybe doing too much and they want it to be CE. And when I hear the developers, I think what their intent is, and this is really all I can judge right now. We don't know the execution. We can just kind of try to gauge the words they're saying and try to, understand what they're trying to accomplish. And from everything that they've said, it feels like they're trying to bring back some of those nostalgia feelings in terms of the tone, in terms of like what Mike was saying about being an individual soldier, like the stakes being higher, having a more personal story. And at the same time, you can't go all the way back to, you can't make the game like CE and elicit the feelings of CE, because one of the things that was so powerful about CE is there wasn't anything really like it when it came out. So, you know, it was grandiose. Like when you get out of the ship and you see that, you know, that those environments, you know, and when you kind of the first time you saw an elite jump behind something and, you know, to recoup his shields and then come back out at you or charge you when they got low. So, you know, there's a lot of these elements that we just never saw put together in a game before. So I think what they're trying to do is recapture CE from like a tonal standpoint. But they're going to balance that. It's got to evolve. It's got to evolve in gameplay and in music and in sound. And it seems like with the updates that they're trying to do that. I will be really interested to see what they talk about when they bring up the subject of AI, because I think that's probably one of the most important things to try to evolve. So, but overall, at this point, it sounds like they're at least their intention is a good balance. We'll have to wait though on the execution. So
I think another thing that we definitely don't know about is how they're going to address the whole Cortana thing, because at the end of the demo, didn't that Spartan, I'm sorry, the Banished General, didn't he say that both the Banished and what was it sounded like they teamed up?
Harbinger is what they refer to, but there's no direct. So we talked about this on the Shadows of Reach book club podcast, and there's no direct mention that Cortana is the Harbinger, because at the end of Shadows of Reach, both the UNSC forces and the Banished are fleeing from Cortana as she and the Guardians arrive at Reach. So Jesse and I have our theories about who the Harbinger actually is. But in terms of what happens with Cortana, they go and get these cryobins from Halsey's lab. We both think that it's basically cloned backups or brains of what was originally used to make Cortana to begin with, because there's an audio clip where, you know, she finds her, quote unquote, finds, and she says, "I don't know how I'm here, but I'm here," and or something along those lines. And I think at that point, you know, I joked about it being a restoration point, but at some point, I think that version of Cortana is going to either break down the version of what's in the domain or something along those lines. But I think that regardless, we're going to get, quote unquote, our Cortana back in some form or fashion.
Well, that would be good, because I obviously that the kind of contrived the way they did that in Halo 5.
Yeah, and it totally destroyed the whole like sacrifice of 4, right?
Yeah. It makes sense. But yeah, we'll cover that in a different show, because I know that's not even the question he was asking. So I am going to, unless anybody's got anything else they want to add here at the end.
Just look out for our next book club podcast coming in the future at some point. We'll be covering the Forerunner trilogy. If you haven't read that, it's 3 books. They're pretty good. It gets a little dry at points, so it'll be a little bit before we get to them. But if you want to be caught up, go ahead and read the Forerunner trilogy. That'll be our next target.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Don. And with that, normally we have Soul that does our sign off. So what's my lines?
Thank you, Patreons.
Yeah, basically check out our Patreon, check out our forum.
Subscribe to YouTube.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button, like all of you right now. And the bell.
Other than that, I think we're going to try to go live more often. We've been doing recorded shows up to now. This show,
especially around these blog posts and stuff when we know when they're coming.
Yep. So we're going to try to time out the blog posts and go on the days those get released. We've been doing this for just 6 months. You know, it's a newer show, but I think now we'll try to create a cadence that's live, and hopefully I want to thank all the everybody who was in the chat today and submitted questions and thoughts, because that really really did help. Helped kind of make the conversation a lot more interesting, and it was great to have you guys part of the show. So hopefully we get to see you in the future. And other than that, I guess it's just time for us to sign off, and hopefully Mike knows how to turn off the podcast better than he can turn it on.
A downvote. Somebody just gave us a downvote. I'm furious. We're at 2 now. What the heck?
That makes me sad.
That's fine. All right,
that
guys.
was fun, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.